I don't know about you, but for me, it feels like forever since we had a truly great 4X space game, and finding something fresh in this genre isn't exactly easy. Fortunately then, we now have a brand new grand strategy game that also just so happens to throw in a real-time strategy into the mix. Set in a richly detailed space environment then, Sins of a Solar Empire 2 places players in command of one of three distinct factions, each vying for the dominance in the galaxy. Now, the primary objective is to build a powerful empire through resource management, strategic combat, and diplomatic maneuvers. Now, in this video, we're going to take a look at an overview of the game and then dive into a bit of a playthrough of the early sections, which will allow you to get a bit of a feel for the game. The video itself is sponsored by Stardock, so my thanks to them for that, and do check out the links in the video description where you can find out everything you need to know. Also, the game is making its way to Steam, so if you're interested, why not wishlist the game as well? And on the subject of Steam actually, you may have noticed that Sins of a Solar Empire 2 has been around for a while. The fact is, it's been available on the Epic Store, is soon launching on Steam, and along with that launch will be a bunch of brand new content available on both versions of the game, both for the Epic version as well as the Steam version. And I'm going to be looking at some of that content in this video. So, the game is a real-time strategy combined with 4X gameplay, and the game actually has a rather unique standout feature, which is its dynamic celestial mechanics, and by this I mean that planets orbit in real time. So they do this as you plan the game, which in turn continuously alters the battlefield and therefore the strategic landscape, and we'll talk more about this further into the video. Now, combat is also very detailed. For example, the ships, especially the larger ones, have turrets that independently target and fire at enemies. Missiles are also physically represented, and this allows for tactical maneuvers such as positioning the tougher ships to block incoming projectiles. And then we have the everyday workhorse, the frigates, not to mention rapidly moving fighters. Now, as with any game in this genre, resources are of course very important, and players must manage all of these, which includes credits, metal and crystal. Now, each faction has unique methods of resource acquisition. The Tech, for instance, relies heavily upon credits, whilst the Visari rely heavily on extraction of resources from planets and asteroids. But ultimately, resources are directly tied to the galactic expansion and the amount of territory that you ultimately own. Planets generate resources, as do the massive asteroids that you can colonize, as do as well at these smaller asteroids inside of star systems which you can directly mine. Diplomacy also plays a crucial role, with players interacting with minor factions using influence points to gain a favour, and then we have the major factions where players can engage with diplomatic options, which include ceasefires and trade agreements. Now, the game does feature procedurally generated maps as well as dynamic celestial movements, which we touched on a moment ago. There's also multiplayer support as well as single player support, and to be perfectly clear on this point, the single player game doesn't have a campaign or story mode. Instead, it's you versus the other empires, which is much of the same nature of games in this genre. Okay, so that gives us a very quick overview of what Sins of a Solar Empire 2 is all about. So what I want to do then is jump in at the start of a play session and work through the first segments of the game, so you'll get an ultimately get a feel of what the game is like to play. Right, so here is my home world. This is the central hub from where all my activity is going to begin. If we zoom out, we can see the entirety of the star system. It's marked by the border there, and we have some travel nodes, some transit points that exit out of this particular star system. They will connect to other star systems. Right here, we have some scouts that are automated. These will fly about and explore the galaxy. We've got three other star systems nearby. The scouts are going to explore these, and these are currently showing as unexplored. They could contain planets, or they could contain large asteroids. Now, the whole galaxy does move. We can look at the future orbits here. Not a lot is going on right at the moment. That's because not a lot of the galaxy has so far been revealed, but that does give you some indication of how things are moving as we play. Now, right here, we've got our factories inside our star system. To start with, we're going to build a capital ship. We do have a selection of these, some very powerful ones, but I'm going to go with the coal battleship, as this is a general purpose ship and is very, very good. This is a capital ship, by the way, and is essential for pretty much all activities. Now I'm also going to build some Cobalt light frigates. These are essentially fighter ships, well not fighters, but these are combat ships that will accompany my capital ship in just a moment. Elsewhere, over on the home world, we're going to put some settings in action here. We're going to upgrade the economy of the planet. We're not going to put any mining here because there's no asteroids, although actually thinking about it, it will enhance the mining of the planet, so I could do that. Logistics will increase the number of civilian slots and military slots, in other words, construction sites that I can have around the base. And then we've got research. Now this is vital because it will allow us to unlock a variety of different technology. We've got civilian research and military research. This will gain us civilian points and military points respectively that we can spend elsewhere. Over here we've got survey. This will unlock for us exotic material, and these are vital. These are very, very important as they are what's required to build further capital ships. Without exotic materials, you won't be able to build any more capital ships, no matter how much other resources you actually possess. Now moving on, we can see the scout ships are now about to head off into the rest of the galaxy. And yes, you can see me changing the speed of the game there. We can maximize the speed all the way up to a factor of 10 or slow it down to a quarter. And we can also pause the game at absolute any time. I'm going to take advantage of that to zoom in on the scout ship, and then we'll unpause the ship. We can see it's now phasing to the nearby star system. Who knows what it will find? Well, we know now. It's turned out it's a massive asteroid surrounded by smaller asteroids, and this does have some other, well, it's occupied. It has some other spaceships here. Now these are grey in colour, which represents a minor faction. The other colours that we'll see later on are major factions. For the most part, these minor factions are relatively easy to deal with, but if you do leave a scout ship around here too long, or indeed any other ship, then there's a very good chance it will be destroyed. Now elsewhere, my other scout ship has located a derelict loot. This is something that we'll come to later with our capital ship and collect. It usually contains exotics and other such things. Heading back to my main homeworld, we can see some of these light frigates have now been constructed. There's another one just coming out of the smaller shipyard there, and you can see our capital ship has also been constructed. These are very nice designs and certainly put me in mind of The Expanse. Now, as you saw, I had 9 frigates queued up for construction. We'd wait for them to be built. Meanwhile, we'll zoom out and have a look at what's so far been explored and discovered within our galaxy. And yes, it's slowly filling up. So heading back again to our home world, we can see that nearly all the frigates are built. We'll soon be ready to send this fleet out to go and conquer some of the galaxy for us. Meanwhile, though, I'm going to build a few more scout ships. So these, again, will head on out and explore the galaxy on their own. Inevitably, though, they do usually end up getting destroyed, so you'll have to keep building some more of them. The galaxy is a dangerous place to explore. Now, research. We mentioned that earlier. Our planet was generating some research points. Those are now available. As you can see, the research tree itself is all greyed out. And that's because we need to unlock Tier 1, Civilian Tier 1. And we're going to spend one of our research points to do that. We've got some other tiers which will need many more research points to actually unlock. Also going to do the same for military research, and that will allow us first and foremost to unlock basic provisioning. This will determine the size of our fleet. Initially, the size of the fleet is somewhat limited, and we will need some research there so we can have a larger fleet. Elsewhere, our scout has discovered a planet. This is a primordial planet. This is a very good resource. We can't see anything here because we haven't got a ship located there just yet. But that is a candidate for colonization. We'll send something over there a little later. Over on the right is a dead end. That's very good because it's easy to defend. And then we got some asteroids right here. So trying to think which one I'll colonize first, either the asteroid or the planet over to the right. I think we'll go with the planet because, as I said, this is a dead end, which means it's going to be very easy to defend. In fact, it's very unlikely that any enemies are going to head on out there and attack it too soon. Now, as you can see, this is a volcanic world, which means it's not going to be easy to colonize. In fact, to actually colonize it, we will need to get some new research that will allow us to colonize those types of worlds. So now we've got Tier 1 civilian research, we'll do exactly that. Here's a volcanic colonization. This simply costs resources rather than research points to unlock, and we'll go for Arctic colonization as well, just in case we find one of those worlds. Tier 1 military research is also unlocked, so we'll go for basic provisioning, which, as I mentioned earlier, will allow me to increase the size of my fleet. We do need to wait for some metal there, but slowly accumulating. This is coming from our main homeworld at the moment. Talking about resources, this is something we'll gather from our variety of planets and asteroids as we go out and colonize and expand into the rest of the galaxy. Basically, the larger our empire gets, the more resources we can gather. Now what you're seeing here is my fleet heading on over to that volcanic world, because for the moment that star system is not going to be empty. There are some ships here, and we are going to need to deal with them. We won't be able to colonize here safely until all of these enemy ships are dealt with. So my cobalt frigates are there, and we can leave these ships to fight on their own. This is the RTS nature of the game. The units will very effectively actually get involved in combat, but also you can select units like in pretty much any RTS game and direct them yourself. I like to do this as it allows me to focus fire on single enemy units and take them out one at a time. And yes, you can zoom right in on here. Also, note the ship's hit points. We've got armor represented by the top bar and hull represented by the bottom bar. And when the hull is all the way down to 0, the ship will explode. And not surprising, let's just zoom out here, change the focus rather. And we can see that, yes, my ships are doing very, very nice damage with all this rapid fire at that particular single ship. We do have some more ships coming in though to the side. Fortunately, my capital ship is on the way, and these are great. They have some very heavy firepower. Although they do shoot pretty slowly, their weapons are very, very deadly. They can also bombard the surface of planets, as we'll see in clips further into the video, and we need to do that when we're trying to take planets from other factions. The only downside is that these capital ships do move very slow. Another good thing about these capital ships is they can take a lot of damage. So not only do they deal damage, they can also absorb quite a bit of it as well. And that makes them very important to your overall fleet. Now, if these ships are damaged during the course of combat, they will also repair. They repair themselves over time. Now, the capital ship has chosen its own target, but I'm going to tell it to just choose this target over here. Let's collectively aim all our firepower at one ship at a time, making it much easier to actually take each of them down. Another thing that's really nice here is that the larger ships, such as this capital ship, also are able to level up. So over time, they do gather experience, and I think any time now we're going to destroy another ship, and you'll see that the capital ship actually does level up. So right now, it's only just been recently constructed. It's a level 1. And as soon as it takes down this one, there you go, it has leveled up. That is now a level 2 capital ship. Now eventually, when you've freed up one of these star systems from the enemies, you can construct a colony ship. This is a colony frigate, and send that to the area. It will then colonize the planet for you, and it does that by sending down a probe to the surface. Of course, you'll need the respective research for the relevant planets in order to do this. As you remember, I did unlock the volcanic colonization, and there goes down the probe, and you'll hear that we now have a new colony in just a moment. Any moment now. There we go, a new colony has been founded. Now with this planet, I can do all the things pretty much I can do with the homeworld. We can build other structures around the planet, but the first thing I want to do is do the survey. Survey will gather us some new exotic materials, very important, as I said, for gathering new, or building rather, new capital ships. You may also remember those derelict loots that I talked about earlier on. These can actually provide these exotic materials as well, and there we go, our capital ship has found the earlier one. Other resources, meanwhile, can be gathered from both planetary surfaces as well as the variety of different asteroids you see looted spotted around the galaxy. So that's a crystal mine I've built there. I'm also going to build a few metal mines over on the metal asteroids. Now, as you'll see here, construction is generally automated. You just place down the item that you want constructed, and a constructor ship will come over and place it or build it. For example, right here, I'm building some artillery weapons, some orbital guns, and this is to defend this ship as it's on the outlying edge of the borders of my territory. You can see we've got 3 transit nodes coming inwards, and I'm going to build the guns right on that edge, so hopefully they will protect the ship from any enemies that come in. And here you can see the constructor frigate heading on over to automatically start building those defense platforms. And these are actually pretty powerful. When you finally and eventually go over and attack enemy star systems that are full of these guns, you will really very much know it. So again, as I continue to play, you can see that the galaxy is more explored, and this time, if we look at future orbits, we can see how their future orbits do actually have a dramatic effect. Pay attention to how these transit lines actually change and shift, and that will dramatically change how I can move around the galaxy. In some cases, you may find some of your star systems ultimately become disconnected from the others. Okay, so here's a few other features in the game that you may find particularly useful. We got the diplomacy option. These are the other major factions within the game. You'll notice I have these set to easy. That's to make things a bit simpler when it comes to capturing the footage. Now you can make some diplomacy trades with these. Ceasefire, we need to do that first. And once we've got that, we can go with some of the other options. This includes share vision. You will share vision of the galaxy, and this will basically make you allies. Then you have Synergy Pact, which also makes you allies, but still gives you priority around your own planets. To attempt to put a diplomatic offer into effect, you'll need to, offer something. This may be accepted or declined. And if you're wondering about zipping around the galaxy, micromanaging all your ships and planets, you don't actually have to do that. We have a military command option here, where you can control your capital ships as well as your star bases. I don't actually have any here at the moment. And also manage all of your planets. And from here, we can see all of our colonies, and we can, effectively manage them right from this single menu. And that saves us a lot of effort in having to zip around the main game screen. We can do it all here from this nice overview. Ultimately then, Sins of a Solar Empire 2 has a lot of content, and it also has a lot of depth. And as you explore and expand further into the galaxy, and as your empire grows, this will become very much apparent. And yes, that will manifest in a variety of different ways, whether it's managing the complexity of your empire or getting involved in very large scale battles. The downside, though, is that complexity makes it a challenging game to learn, and there's nothing really that much in the way of tutorials, and certainly no hand-holding or guidance along the way, so you're very much left to figuring things out on your own. But once you do, it makes it all the more rewarding for doing so. That said, I have been told that a tutorial is planned for the full release in summer. It's an interesting game then, and a pretty unique one at that. Do check out those links in the video description, and my thanks again to Stardock for sponsoring this video.